Hey, what's up, guys? Shuckleking here, bringing you WBE Season 6, Week 7 Power Rankings with OGalbina. Say hi.
Hey, what's up, guys? How's it going?
All right, so it's going up a little bit later than normal. We've both just been busy in general. Some games have been posted a little bit later than normal, but it is what it is. We're trying to get this through and try to get you guys some power rankings every week. This week, a lot of weird games that were pretty straightforward, and there's some teams that are like already out of playoff contention that aren't necessarily putting out their best effort because they don't have to, and there's some teams that are already clinched playoffs, so they also don't have to necessarily put out like the best teams either. So it's kind of hard to judge, I would say, this week about what the true power rankings are. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. There was definitely some very interesting games, and there were some very self-explanatory, straight to the punch games as well. Not some of the games. There's definitely a lot to talk about. Some of them, it's definitely more so just like you watch and you figure it out. It's pretty simple. We'll do our best nonetheless.
Yeah, exactly. But make sure you guys continue watching and provide some comments if we want us to improve in future weeks, or if you like the format we're providing. And make sure you check out both my channel, obviously, because you're here, and then OG's channel. Also, make sure you check it out because we're posting every other week, as you guys know by now.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's get right into it. So first game we have in the docket is Feint Attacks versus Thatsa +1. So what'd you think about this one? Feint got a pretty big win,
yeah,
I think.
Feint played well. He brought a very, very offensive team, which I think is a good idea versus Thatsa's build, just because his team just lacks defensive pivots as a whole. Especially with the type of builds he usually goes with. He has, some bulkier stuff like, T-Tar and Tar and stuff like that, pretty much, honestly. Decidueye, I guess you could count as a nice little pivot, but not much of a defensive backbone. So that's Feint decided to go with a very offensive approach. There were a few things that I thought were interesting in his prep, and a few things that I thought were great. The Curum set, I know he was very excited to bring it, and it did pretty well too. But when you're playing against rain, freeze-dried Curum is usually one of your better options. Maybe like a mixed Curum with to hit the T-Tar a little bit harder. Yeah. But Freeze Dry was incredibly free versus Thatsa's team. So I figured a more specially, invested set would come to this matchup in particular. The Sash was also interesting with the potential of Sand, just being able to kind of negate that, where T-Tar is actually a pretty solid pivot into Curum as well, if it is a special variant. So that's obviously very interesting, but it did well. It led, and it was able to take out a big threat to his team in the Dreadnought, which was obviously really, really nice, and able to get up a DD and stuff like that. One other quick little interesting thing about his prep, I noticed he used X-Scissor on his Technician Scizor when Bug Bite does exist, and Bug Bite is stronger than X-Scissor. So that hurt me a little bit because that would have obviously been a better option. It didn't really matter too much in all honesty, but I saw it and I was like, no, like, please, no. But this match was honestly just a case of Thatsa not having good defensive pivots and just getting overwhelmed very fast. One great thing that I think that Feint brought was the Specs Ninetales. It didn't pop off super crazy, but again, like I said with the Curum, Freeze Dry is a very nice thing to have versus Rain. And if you're not only a mon that can reset the Rain totally and get rid of like a potential Kingdra, which I don't think even end up coming, but resetting the Rain to where it can be faster than that thing and the Dreadnought, and just off a free Specs Freeze Drive versus team. Very, very nice, because T-Tar obviously isn't going to pivot into that super easily. So there was the potential for triple weather this game, which is pretty cool. I like the Miltank. The Miltank was a nice, just general overall nuisance to that's his team. The body press did a ridiculous amount to the to his squad. Jellicent, also very, very good here. The Culberberry was a little bit interesting. But regardless, it was, a great Kingdra check on paper. I'm glad that didn't bring like a sub Dragon Pulse Kingdra that ended up, would have, essentially lost to a 1v1 like he did when Chimp had the Jelly. So that was obviously good in Feint realizing that. I think his team was solid though outside of the Sash Curum, and I think he just played his offensive threats well and kept Thatsa on the back foot the entire time to where he could never really get in a position to put any pressure on Feint or, ever grab any momentum in that game.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Maybe Thatsa had probably had a bad matchup this game, but I also saw that Thatsa just picked random mons anyway.
Oh, did he?
Like, I don't know if he even knew what Feint's team was, like, before he started the battle. So, like, I didn't even bother to watch his side. It's whatever. If you're not gonna put the effort in, I'm not gonna watch it. So,
and you're gonna end up losing, unfortunately. But I guess that's how it goes. Yeah.
Yeah. Good for Feint for getting the win. But next game we have in the docket is Cbad versus Fruitberries. I don't know. Cbad got the win. I still have him at 13, as do you for the power rankings. I didn't move him up this week just because he was able to beat Fruitberries, which honestly hard for me to judge at this point. So I don't think he's even uploaded the last couple weeks, so I don't even know what to really analyze about Fruit's teams. But yeah, I just remember, like, I don't know, I'm probably gonna say more bad things about Cbad than good in general this game. Like, turn 1, he nasty plotted with his Gengar on a Magna Zone. That just didn't make any sense. Like, if you're Sash nasty plot, like, Magna Zone isn't that worried about a Gengar. Like, Gengar is not gonna be taking out Magna Zone in one hit. Even, like, Focus Blast probably doesn't kill unless you're, like, Life Orb boosted. Yeah, so it just makes sense for Fruitberries to just, I believe he Volt switched and then brought in Gengar, which revenge kills or he brought in Ditto, which turns into a Scarf Gengar, which revenges your Sash Nasty Black Gengar. So that just didn't make any sense. I don't think Fruitberries ended up being Scarf anyway.
Nope.
From what I remember, which I don't get. Like, you bring Scarf if you bring Ditto. Like, unless if it's maybe like Focus Sash, I don't really understand why you bring any other item, just because, like, Ditto's HP is so low. You can't really do a whole lot outside of, like, revenge killing with Ditto. Mew's a different story if Mew's transforms, just because it has a lot of HP. So, like, I could see, like, a Mew transform not being scarfed, but just Ditto not being scarfed or, like, Focus Sash just doesn't make any sense to me. But that's, I guess, besides the point. A lot of stuff in the middle that happened. Chase, I don't think, played around Azatu that well. Don't really know why. I felt like he should have won like 3 or 4-0, but like just didn't play well against Azatu. Azatu was pretty threatening to him, really unjustifiably, especially if you have a Gudra that can handle it for nothing. So just weird plays by Chase. Pretty sloppy, but he was able to get the win. So win's a win, and I think he's in 9th place. So, like, he's definitely can make the playoffs. He just has to clean up, like, some things. And I don't think the wins he's gotten this season, honestly, have been that impressive. So I think that's why you both have him pretty low in the power rankings.
Yeah, this game was really tough to watch. I don't have much to say about Fruitberries just because, like you said, at this point, I haven't really seen an upload from him for a while, at least on his, like, you know, main channel where I've been looking every week. So I watched Chase side as well, and I think it was much like that. So where Fruitberries, he definitely didn't play good. Don't get me wrong. And again, his build wasn't very good either. Like you said, non-choice Ditto. And I think the week before he didn't bring choice Ditto again. So like this is a recurring thing, which is, you know, definitely very unfortunate. You bring Scarf Ditto, and 99.8% of your matches you should be that, unless you want to get super gimmicky and bring Quick Claw, which it might have been. That is like my least favorite item right now. I lost a game. I can't say but no, it'll be uploaded today. Screw it, I'll say it. I lost a game to a double Quick Claw pop in BBR last week, and I do not like that item. So minus points for Fruitberries in there. It's an awful item. But
there you go.
Chase definitely played very, very interesting. The one play in particular, I have a bunch of these, you know, plays where, you know, there was points in the game where I'm like, why did you do this? But one play in particular that made me really upset was the rocks play on the Xatu with his Terrakion. Like that play made me very upset. At that point, there wasn't really anything on Fruitberry's team that cared about rocks other than the Xatu. And
exactly.
The whole team pressured Xatu pretty well offensively. And Fruitberry's rock resist at that point was a hit on top at like 50%. So in my mind, that's the freest Stone Edge of all time. You don't need to make the cool play of getting the rocks up on the Magic Bounce Mon as you force it out. If you looked at his team, because the hit on top was so chipped, there was nothing that switched into Edge plus CC. Like everything died at that point in the game. So
exactly.
That was just like kind of like a token showing of, you know, how this game really did end up going. I think one bad thing I could say about Fruitberries, obviously in the single bad critique I could say about his play in this. He threw away the Alolawak very early, which I thought was a bit sus because it honestly just ripped through Chase's team. And, that could obviously have given him a bit of a better position. But it was a very odd game overall. I don't have too much to say that you didn't, already tack on at the beginning there.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so next game we have in the docket, which I thought was one of the more interesting games. And it seems like Uzi always gets to the interesting games and just can't find a way to win, which is just unfortunate because I think we both have Uzi. What do we have Uzi? I have him at 10. It's really 9, and you have him at 9 as well. Like, he should have a better record than what he does. But this is James and Uzi. So how'd you think about James's build this week win compared to loss last week to Steve?
I think that James played pretty well this week, actually. Definitely a big improvement on his week prior.
Yeah.
I think he played very well around that Shuckleking and around the hazard stack approach from Uzi, which I think was a very smart idea on Uzi's end. But he was very smart in the way he played around it. He made a very good double in the early game. I don't know why he didn't U-turn, though. To be fair, I don't know why he didn't U-turn. But he doubled from his Corviknight to the Rotom. To catch, I believe, a Rotom Heat coming in to get a big defog off, which I think was very, very important. Keeping hazards off the field is honestly what I think won James the game because he would have been overwhelmed if the rocks stayed up in particular, which I'm sure you'll talk about with Uzi. He should have valued rocks over spikes. But what do you call it? Keeping those rocks off the field was very, very clutch. He played around the Endeavors very smart, realizing that he could just PP stall it with pressure and roosting up and stuff like that, keeping his Corviknight around for the entire game and really being a general nuisance to his team. I think he positioned the Frostlass very well, realizing that while Uzi had good checks to it, his checks getting weakened were very bad for him, so it always put him in a bad spot whatever Frostlass got in for free. He played very well around the Hydreigon, which at matchup, I looked at it and I said, oh, damn, Nasty Plot Hydra 6-0s him. This is going to be really bad. But the BP Umbreon was very smart, and he was very smart on the turns in which he BP'd and on the turns in which he thought he needed to stay healthy and things like that. So I think he played very well and just was able to position himself very, very nicely. Despite not having a lot of, great offensive pressure outside of the Frostlass, he was able to get it in very often and put himself in a really good position to win in this one.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I don't know about Uzi's approach of going spikes this game when it's Rotom, Wash, and Corvi, and Corviknight that both kind of shut it down and both can defog on it. It just seemed weird. Uzi's game was I thought he played fine, but he just didn't play aggressive enough. It was just so annoying to watch. He had a Rotom Heat with Nasty Plat. You said the Hydreigon was good. I think he played Hydreigon pretty fine this game with Nasty Plat. And James played, as you said with the Umbreon, he played very well, making sure to prioritize whether to heal up his Umbreon versus Baton passing out, even if he wasn't at full HP, and just making sure he had momentum. And probably some of these coaches that are lower in a power ranking should really watch James. I think he has pretty good perspective and has a good insight. And this was very, very close to perfectly played by James. Maybe at the end he played a little bit risky, but otherwise, I think he played very well this game. But Uzi with Nasty Plot, Rotom Heat, he just had so many opportunities to get a Nasty Plot up and just went for damage when he could have been a lot more threatening. It was just, man, he just could have been more aggressive. He just made too many safe plays when he has such an offensive team. Even the Rapidash, in theory, should have done pretty well. It died towards the end of the game, not doing anything, which wasn't necessarily a bad play. But at the end, there were just so many opportunities for Uzi to bring in Rotom Heat and do well, and he just didn't. And he was able to, with the Scolipede, he was able to get spikes up at one point in the game. He was able to get the 3 layers up, and James didn't defog after all the Endeavors went. So that was good on Uzi's part. But there was a play where, what was it? There was a Frostlass. Yeah, there was Frostlass in the field. James brought it in. And Uzi went into Copperajah instead of Rotom Heat. And I think that honestly lost the game. It was towards the 2/3 part of the battle. And going into Copper Rajah was not the play, just because Rotom Wash was just such a free switch in. And Uzi doesn't do much damage to it, and then he's able to defog. There's 3 spikes away. And like that was just brutal. If he brings in a Rotom Heat on the Frostlass, like you just overheat, or you even just nasty plat. Because Frostlass isn't going to 2-hit KO. Unless he thought he was Specs. But at that point, I think you have to make some risks. And I don't think James would stay in and go for spec Shadow Balls and try to 2-hit KO when he could just die to 1 overheat. So like there were just aggressive plays Uzi could have made at the end. He also lost a lot of timer pretty quickly, which was unfortunate. They were both under, I think, 30 seconds at the end of the game. So it was kind of crazy there. But yeah, just Uzi could have won this game. And like he's been so close in a lot of games this season and just hasn't pulled the trigger. So unfortunate, but I still think he can make playoffs if he wins out, and I think he definitely has a decent chance to do so.
Yeah, like you said, Uzi just played a little bit too passively with a very offensive team, and against a very fatter build like James's, you have to play a little bit more aggressive, put him on the back foot, and grab yourself a little bit of momentum, because it felt like he was playing from the back most of that game, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly, and yeah, James just did a good job keeping like bulk and momentum, which is hard to do. Like you could have bulk and not have momentum, and like that could work out for you, or just have momentum in the game and just have a lot of hyper offense, like Callum. The next game we're talking about would be like the perfect example too. But if you have both bulk and momentum, that's gonna be like impossible to win. So really good play by James.
Oh yeah, definitely one of his better showings. Let's go on to Callum versus Nexus though. Speaking of it,
yeah. So Callum, turn 1 was crazy. He had this was basically the game here. Turn 1, he leads with Cobalion? Scarf Cobalion, right? On Keldeo and Volt switches. Yeah, he Volt switches on Keldeo, which is just crazy because Keldeo could have been scarfed.
Super ballsy. Well. Yeah, that was a super ballsy play.
Probably killed with Focus Blast. I don't know if Sacred Sword would have killed. But like turn 1, Callum could have just lost his Cobalion there. Might not have made a difference, even so, just because as soon as Callum got webs up, Porygon Z just killed everything on the team. And Callum just played so well, keeping the offensive pressure. He saw that Weavile was boots, so like that was the only way that Porygon Z wasn't going to be able to like just claim a kill, was when the Weavile came in. But Callum was just able to play around the Weavile so well and preserve his PZ, and like I haven't seen like PZ like ever do this well on any team outside of Calb, so I gotta give him a lot of credit. Like he's been playing PZ extraordinary this season, and this was a very, very convincing win, so definitely high props to Callum.
Oh yeah,
not really much else to say again in this game. The mixed defensive Cramorant, I like it. I respect it.
Any Cramorant bring is a good time. Of course. This is another game where I don't think Nexus played like super awful. He was just put on such a bad position from the early game. And with a team like Callum's, once he grabs that offensive momentum, and if he can play well enough to keep it, it's really hard to get back in the game. Like really hard with the offensive pressure that he has. And like you said, the last few weeks in particular, he's been using PZ phenomenally, especially after that game versus Moet, where he just did not get it in whatsoever.
Yeah.
Since then, he's been very proactive about using his momentum and using his offensive mods to, force a lot of switches and get in his great breaker, get in his great breaker in PZ. And I think his team, obviously, I said this in like the post draft power rankings. This is like a team that supports PZ so well, which is the weirdest thing. It almost looks like a team that was built around PZ, which is pretty funny. He made great middle grounds in this game. I'm kind of just more so going to talk about Callum because I just think Nexus was kind of never made the right call on those middle ground plays with his Weavile. Callum was very smart and to always get in his Cobalion on a turn where Weavile wasn't clicking knockoff, which is obviously nice, being able to keep the scarf and be able to keep on offensive pressure with that, which was a very, very cool set. Yeah. But he was able to pivot around it very, very well. He was able to grab a lot of momentum with that Cobalion and that Vikavolt. Using Vikavolt as a great bulky pivot. I love the Scarf Cobalt Ring. I thought it was cool. Usually you'll see like a weird Chople set or something like that try to choke Weavile, but in theory, if you get knocked into low kicked after a little bit of chip, it doesn't work out. So I think that the Scarf Ring was cool because it wasn't a useless mon, or like it wasn't a useless item. Like it didn't kill him if his item was knocked off. It didn't like destroy his set. So I thought I thought it was a really, really solid performance by Callum, and just Nexus was very much so overwhelmed by his offense. It just, ended up being how it was. He was able to position himself really well throughout this game.
Mm-hmm. I think I almost like 98% of the time, if my opponent has a sticky web user, like I just bring defog. Like, unless it's like super like hyper offensive team or like a super stall team, like it's just safer to have that in the back
because it's like, so tough playing when you're at an automatic speed disadvantage. It's so tough playing with sticky web the whole game. So
exactly,
no removal at all was very, very tough for Nexus to play around and because it was basically just Weavile against all of Callum's team. So he tried his best to position and get in a place where he could pick up some KOs, but Callum just made good middle ground plays and was able to position himself correctly for the end game, which was dope. But yeah, pretty good stuff.
So next game we got on the lineup is Moet versus Magnitude. So what do you think about this one?
So Moet versus Magnitude. This was a very interesting early game. Moet led off with, I believe, his Vizually against the Cinccino. And I thought the Cinccino bring was actually very good. It put on a lot of pressure in this game. And, could actually do a lot of damage to him outside of the Duraludon. It was honestly very, very good in this matchup. But what happened early game is, what do you call it? Steve clicked Rock Blast as you hard down to the Duraludon. That's fair. I know Steve was talking about like knockoff was the play. I suppose it's true, but I don't think like him not clicking knock and not just attacking what's in front of him the first turn of the game is like the worst thing in the world. Like I disagree in the sense that like, I lost the game from Turbo 1. No, I don't think that was the worst thing in the world. What I do think was a bad play was staying in. I think that was a very bad play, especially when I was watching Moet's side initially before I watched Steve's side. I was like, maybe he just really wanted to grab momentum and he was scared he would double. But it turned out he just stayed in to click knock, which was honestly, definitely interesting because he said in his commentary too, he expected a Scarf Duraludon to at least, semi-check that Komodo and try and, at least speed tie and revenge it at +1. So giving up that Cinccino turn 1 was very, very tough. That was definitely very tough. But Moet played phenomenally this game. He was able to position his Duraludon to click buttons versus him, honestly. And there was the play right after that. He went on to the Ferrothorn, obviously, which is another very interesting thing, that he didn't just go hard Pharaoh to at least scout. Like, if he's like an Iron Defense set, there's ways that you can play around it and things like that. But at least initially scouting for like, a special or a choice variant on the Duraludon, I think is a lot more beneficial. Because he just went into it right afterwards, and Mo made a great play, obviously, knowing that Hat was actually a really good Pharaoh check if it's not Iron Head or Heavy Slam or something like that, and it's Gyro Ball, which Steve did bring Gyro Ball. I think that's obviously just kind of a misstep by him. I think Iron Head or Heavy Slam was definitely better when you're playing a Hatterene because it's so slow in itself that Gyro Ball did like 25% or something like that the turn after.
Yeah, nothing.
Yeah, the turn after in which he bounced back the rocks and keeping the rocks away when you have a non-boots full Corona. That was definitely a very aggressive play, but a very needed and a very good play because he wasn't getting outgoed by anything. So I think that was a very good play by Moet. He definitely had to make that play. And then afterwards, he didn't really try and pivot or play around the hat very well. When he realizes that Mystical Fire is probably coming out on his Ferrothorn, he does have a Chandelure, which puts on a lot of offensive pressure and does not die from a hit from full. And even if it's not Flash Fire, I don't think it dies from Mystical Fire into, into like a Psyshock or anything like that. Yeah.
Or Psyshock, yeah.
Yeah, so I think Chandelure was definitely a play because from that point too, after the Ferrothorn took like 90% from the first Mystical Fire and then died the next turn, it was essentially just like, Duraludon picks one every single time it comes in. And it was just kind of, after that early game, Steve didn't play super awful. It's just Mo was in such a good position where he could just kind of cleave through his team. There was definitely some interesting brings on Steve's part that I also think didn't really help him, but I'm sure you'll talk about that when you talk about Steve's side.
I don't know. I want to talk about last week. And like Steve played really well last week against JamesWBaek. That's why I have number 1 in my power rank, because he just did amazing. Like he was able to keep hazards up and just put James in the vortex. Like James couldn't do anything. And, like Steve had a very, very convincing win last week. So congrats to Steve. I think he definitely deserves number 1 in the power rankings for that performance.
You petty little bit. All right, let's keep going on to... what's the next one?
Yeah, let's talk about the next game. So let's talk about Auto versus Patty. Another weird game. Like, yeah, Auto was going to win. Auto won. Patty's out of playoff contention, so Patty doesn't have to try. Auto, I think if he wins his game, was 100% locked, but I don't think Auto really realistically thought he was going to actually lose this game. And he just won. Yeah, not a whole lot to say. There is probably more. I'll talk more about the weird plays that Auto made. Like, he went into Aegis. Well, what was it? It was Teleport Arcanine, which was a cool bring for the Alcremie. Alcremie was a weird bring just because of Aegislash being on the team, and Arcanine even. Alcremie can't really get past either of those mons unless if Aegislash doesn't have a Iron Head or if like Arcanine doesn't have Toxic. But like, it's almost 100% one of those two things is going to happen. So that was just a weird set by Patty, but a lot of his sets have been weird, so it's whatever. But like, he Toxic the Alcremie with the Arcanine, which was good, and teleported out into Aegislash to get it in on the Alcremie, even though it had an Iron Defense up. I think at this point, you go into Aegislash, then you double back into Arcanine to see if it has the fire move, which it 90% of the time will have the fire move. Just because I don't agree with all the damage that the Aegislash took on the Alcremie. If it was like fire move, Calm Mind, Iron Defense, Draining Kiss, like Arcanine just sits in front of it all day. So like, I feel like you just sit in with Arcanine and just heal up and get to 100% health. I don't think you have to take that 60% damage or so that Aegislash took, just because Aegislash was so good. Because it was Mienshao gets hit pretty hard by Shadow Sneak, Necrozma's there. Savali Dark doesn't get hit that hard, but like Jolteon gets hit hard. Melodic's Toxic, which that was a good play, turn 1 with Auto to get the Toxic on the Melodic. That was pretty nice. That way Melodic can't just sit on the field all day. So that was just a weird set of plays there. But otherwise, like Mo was just able to like destroy the team. And Patty brought a bad Necrozma set again and lost. So good for Auto. Got the win. Locks in the playoffs. I think we both have him at. Do we both have him at 3? Yeah, we both have him.
So,
at,
yeah.
Well, I have him at 4, but I think he's been at 3 or 4 for a while for both of us. So it makes sense that he's gonna stay there probably for the whole season.
Oh yeah, at this point. You pretty much touched on it all. From Patty's side, I just think again, I don't think he played super bad, and I think that's kind of a theme at this point. But you're seeing some of the subpar or mediocre drafts kind of start to bite the coach in the butt. With Patty in particular, it's the fact that he just has 0 breaking power on his team. He had nothing to really break through Auto's team to where he could make a misplay here or there. He could make a misstep. He could play ridiculously safe and never really be punished for it because there wasn't anything that really threatened him the whole game. There was never a point in the game where I was watching, I was like, well, if Patty makes this double, if Patty, makes this prediction and breaks through this Pokemon, this opens up this. The whole time I just felt like I was kind of inevitably waiting for Auto to win the game.
Yep.
That's just how, it ended up going. Like you said, I think that Auto used the Rotom-O very well. I think the Toxic early game on Milo was huge. And that was really the only play he really needed to make. He just kept pivoting around and getting in his breakers and things like Aegislash and Rotom and clicking buttons. And that was pretty much it. It was a very self-explanatory game. It was the last game I watched of the week, and it was definitely a pretty simple one to kind of analyze and think about and stuff like that. So I don't have too much to say on top of what you kind of added in about some things that Auto did in that one. But yeah.
Yeah. And actually, I think Patty's set for the Necrozma actually probably wasn't as bad as it's been past weeks. That's why I just made that assumption. It actually wasn't that bad, but Patty played the Necrozma bad. See, I think he switched in Necrozma on the Rotom-O, and he died to T-Bolt plus Leaf Storm. And it could have actually done pretty decent damage. I think it was Calm Mind plus like Power Gem to hit the Mandibuzz, and I think Heat Wave to hit the Aegislash, and then Psychic coverage. Like, that's a pretty decent set.
Just like a Calm Mind 3, which is fair versus Auto, because his team is generally on the slower side. So like, that can definitely do some great breaking and stuff like that if you get up Calm Mind.
So I think he definitely could have gotten I don't think he would have won the game, but I think he could have brought it a little bit closer than a 6-0 if he played Necros, but at least okay-ish.
Oh, yeah,
But
for
he
sure.
didn't.
Just didn't get in until the end.
Yeah. So, let's go to the next game here. Aim versus Chimp. Again, I don't know in terms of Joey's perspective, like he's in playoffs. So I don't know how much he actually like cares about winning this game or like revealing sets necessarily. And again, this was kind of a weird game because I don't think there were a whole lot of necessarily misplays by Joey, and that's why even though am I supposed to be talking about this? Do we mix up the order? Oh yeah, you talk about Chimp's win. Yeah, we do that first. So explain why Chimp won that game. I'll talk about Joey in a bit.
Chimp was the benefactor of a little bit of luck. Joey got lucky early in the game getting the freeze and the lax, but I don't think that was super game changing in all honesty. It was definitely lucky, and the lax could have stuck around. I believe it lived the next blizzard actually, and could have been a general nuisance throughout the game. But I think Chimp played very well in the mid to end game. He made a great double in the middle of the game with his Zero Aura out. I believe he clicked Banded Plasma Fist on something. I forget exactly what it was, but Joey calculated, said, oh, damn, this is banded. And he made a double. He switched into his extra drill pivoting, and Chimp made a very good double knowing that he would pivot, so that was obviously very nice. And then the only other, really great play by Chimp, well, not even great play, it was just like, a good play. He made a great spike play with his Quillfish on a Northern Roost, knowing that it limited his drill switch-ins, which, made the end game a lot easier for him to potentially win, which was nice. And again, I agree with you. I don't know how serious Joey was taking this just because he is locked and Chimp is a potential playoff opponent, because some of the things he brought were very interesting. But yeah. The Hurricane misses definitely put him in a pretty bad position as well. I think the end game might have been a little bit different if he might have hit one or two of those more, kept his Northern a little bit healthier. But regardless, I think Chimp played very well and made some, nice aggressive plays where he needed to, opposed to playing crazy out of his mind the whole game. He played safe when he needed to, he played aggressive when he needed to, and he was able to take home a nice W 1-0 versus Joey. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, you actually talked about a couple of things I was going to mention about Joey's side. The freeze early game, I don't think really made a difference. But he had the Kangaskhan in, and he died with the Kangaskhan in exchange for like a decent amount of damage on the Crocodile and a decent amount of damage on the Gorgeist. And I didn't think that was a trade that was worth it. Like, with how it was pretty offensive, Joey's team, and I feel like you want to go at worst 1-for-1 and then put yourself in like the final 1-on-1 position where you're probably going to win the game. I think that was like the game plan that AIM had into this. And like if you're not able to kill the Crocodile or the Gorgeist, then that's pretty tough just because it gives Chimp an opportunity for a sack in the game. And keep like momentum towards the end. So that was definitely not a great play to sack off the Kangaskhan. I think it went for like a double edge and it did decent damage to the Gorgeist, but not even close to range where it's easily to revenge kill. You talked about the Banded Zero Aura play, which that was weird to bring against the Excadrill, but I guess it makes sense. Like a choice banded close combat's gonna do a lot to an Excadrill, even if Excadrill is probably going to be Choppel in this game. I think it makes a lot of sense. And it was Choppel. He could be a potential Shuka as well, Zero, which would have been a nice, potential way to beat the drill 1-on-1 outside of sand. But it was able to put on a lot of pressure. That's for damn sure. And he was able to use it to his advantage.
Or Air Balloon. Yeah, I think either of those would have made sense. But I actually think the play that Joey made was a bad play versus the play, like the switch that Chimp made in the Gorgeist was a good play. Like, if Joey knows that the Zero Aura is banded just because it did so much damage to the Gigalith, like, I feel like it's just pretty obvious that
Chimp is going to make that double.
The Chimp is going to make that double, yeah. And, like, because Joey was already down 5-4 in Mons, you have to figure out a way to, like, get a free kill. And, like, Darmanitan got a free kill if he was able to get that in. So yeah, I think the play was definitely, and because Chimp also knew that Joey wasn't going to sack his Gigalith, just
He's
because like Sand was very important to like outspeed a Zeraora late in the game, especially because he knew with Bandit that it wasn't like Shucka Zeraora that could take a hit from the Excadrill. So I think Joey had to make even like the Noivern play or the Dorn play at that point, because I think he was on the back foot, maybe farther on the back foot than maybe he thought he was. Joey also got crit by the Sigalith energy ball, which was pretty unfortunate. As he saw at the end of the game, that Excadrill wasn't able to switch in a whole lot into spikes just because it did get hit by the crit earlier on in the game. So that was kind of unfortunate. Joey was on the bad end of a little bit of hacks, but I feel like he still could have put himself in a position to win. The Hurricane miss, though, was pretty bad at the end. He had a very decent chance to win that game otherwise. Oh, yeah. So I don't think you could really say a whole lot bad about Aimside, obviously, because he's 6-1. So he's still number 2 in our rankings. But I think Chimp both went up a little bit in our rankings.
Yeah, he played this one
I have him at like 4. You have him at 5, I think. So
5 or something like that. Yeah. I don't have the slide pulled up, but yeah.
Yeah. So definitely makes sense there.
Pretty much.
All right. So last game of the week, and I feel like we talk about Emvee last every time just because he keeps winning and keeps being number 1 in our power rankings, but he's 2 on mine. But Emvee actually lost this week to Viz. So Viz played like he had to like try to win this game to like secure a playoff spot. I think Viz still would have made playoffs even if he lost this game, but like this has to give a lot of confidence to Viz that like he can compete like for a championship this season. And I think he's played pretty well throughout this whole season. Honestly, I haven't been super impressed myself with Viz's wins necessarily. I don't know if they're that flashy, but he brought some very cool sets, and he was able to utilize that this week, and like just keep the pressure like throughout this whole game. It was the Scarf Dragalge that got the crit on the on Emvee's Togekiss. That was a little unfortunate in that regards, but that was a really, really cool set. And the Jirachi weakness policy set, honestly, he played that a little very risky actually. That probably could have close to won the game if he was a little bit more conservative. I don't think he would have won the game with Jirachi, but I think he could have gotten a couple more kills if he didn't like be too aggressive and just go for 100% win on this gun tank. Just because there was a chance that he could have been para-hacks and lost this gun tank, or lost the Jirachi on this gun tank for no kills. So that was unfortunate there, but. The Sharpedo getting the Destiny Bond kill on the Lantern, I think pretty much sealed the game that the Primarina was going to win at the end, because he didn't really have a whole lot. Emvee didn't have a whole lot to deal with the Primarina once the Lantern died. So that was just a really cool set. Don't think a whole lot. I don't really think Viz's plays were that flashy, or nothing like really stuck out of him getting a win. I think just because Emvee brought like a weird team, but he was able to get the win, so good for Viz. And he's still pretty high up in our power rankings.
Oh yeah, for sure. Viz, I love his build but I think that's very interesting that you mentioned that, because I totally didn't even think of it. They're obviously both going to make playoffs. Emvee for sure, and Viz, unless he absolutely just tanked and lost all of his weeks by like 4 or 5-0s. Something like that. He was pretty set as well. So while I loved Viz's build this week, I thought he brought some very cool stuff. I love the Prim Ring, as you said. Like it's a very good set versus Emvee in particular.
Definitely.
But he showed a lot of his cards in this game. So I pray for Viz's sake that he doesn't have to play Emvee in playoffs, because I don't think the Emvee team was very serious. Emvee has shown us time and time again this season that he has very solid and sound builds, and this week was definitely a much more gimmicky and odd team. Like I don't think the Shuckleking was definitely Emvee's best bring in the world when he had such a reliable defogger versus the team in Rotom, and things like that. But other than that, it just seemed like Emvee was kind of using this as an opportunity to scout, bring some more fun stuff like the Stench Skuntank. That was really funny to see. I've legitimately never seen Stench Skuntank ever used. But it was really cool, and it let him beat down the I let him beat down the Rachi with his crunches and things like that, which was really, really interesting to see for sure. It sucks that, you know, the Rachi did get paraflinched down, which is, you know, pretty ironic, but it sucks that it happened. But when you bring Thatsa up, you risk that, you know, you're much more likely to get cheesed or hacked a little bit if you're sitting on the field for 50 turns, you know, trying to set up for a game. So that sucked. But other than that, I think Viz played great. I think he positioned himself very well. I don't think Emvee played bad necessarily. I just think this definitely game gave me off a vibe that Emvee didn't bring his best team, just to kind of, you know, see what Viz wanted to do and things like that for a potential rematch. But it was still definitely a good game to watch.
Oh yeah, definitely, and I think that was definitely a fair play by Emvee to get the scouting, and we still have him number 1 in our ranking. So I don't think this game really.
The undefeated record's always really cool, but the championship's a little bit cooler. So I definitely get the point of view from there.
But okay, yeah, I think that's our analysis for week 7. Again, sorry that it's going up a little bit later. I think for the rest of the week we'll be able to get something up a little bit quicker. But yeah, and it's a little bit shorter too, so I think we did a little better on time this week. So
dang, we did. Look out.
That's nice. Yeah. But again, make sure you check out OG's channel next week. He's also streaming a little bit more, so make sure you watch his content there, putting out some Amoongus gameplay. So that's cool to see.
That was a good time. All right. But
yeah.
Should be
anything else to say?
No, definitely go watch the games if you haven't done so already, and watch this week's games because we're going to be talking about them next week on my channel. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys.
Yep. Until next time, later, guys.